Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. Today, we discuss a 200-piece limited edition rose gold series of 200 pieces launched by Cartier. So in 2023, Cartier launched 3 special Santos-Dumont XL models. Each one featured a special stone element used to craft the applique numerals of the dial as well as the cabochon on the crown. So this is the Santos-Dumont XL Jade dial, 200 pieces in rose gold. You can see that even the signature on the back echoes the color of the stone, and there's individual numbering out of 200. In rose gold, it may be the Santos-Dumont XL, but it is not extra large. It's about 33.9 from side to side, not including the crown, 7.7 millimeters thick, and 46.7 from lug tip to lug tip. Now you can also see that there is some curvature to the case back, so the watch wears nicely on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. There's some stiffness to the strap, but not so much that it won't soften up as it breaks in. And I could recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference in good conscience. You can see how much clearance I've got on each side, and also that the watch is the consummate dress timepiece, easily sliding underneath a formal cuff. The strap is substantial. Medium rectangular symmetrical scale alligator leather. You can see how it's cinched up close to the watch, and there is some stiffness here because it can't pivot within the lug. So you've got a little bit of that fight, flare, and virtual span across the wrist. But again, I think 14 centimeters circumference and up, you're going to have no problems whatsoever. Unlike some Cartier watches, this watch has a fairly conventional strap and buckle. We have a little Cartier-styled Ardillon buckle here, and you can see that it is gold, just like the watch, rose gold. One feature worth mentioning is that it does have an elevated bridge, so when the strap sits inside the buckle, it sits flush. So it doesn't actually stack up on the wrist, and that's a nice thing to be able to demonstrate there. Makes for a more elegant appearance. The strap is semi-gloss black. We've got a folded edge, a monotone stitch, calfskin on the bottom. You can see brand new Cartier factory strap. And then on the reverse side, water resistant, 30 meters, mechanical, indeed it is. And it is the caliber 430 MC, which is the Piaget 430P. Manual wind with a 43-hour power reserve, 18 joules, and a 3 hertz beat rate. It is a very compact, high-end manual movement, so only 2.1 millimeters thick and I believe 20.5 millimeters in diameter, so ideal for use in small, thin watches that require a high-end mechanical timekeeper. Of course, Piaget and Cartier, both members of the Richemont group, and Cartier through the years has drawn on other Richemont members like Piaget and Jaeger-LeCoultre to have autologerie, mechanical movements in its own watches. And again, this is a manual wind with a 43-hour power reserve. The original Santos-Dumont, created for pioneering Brazilian aviator Alberto Santos-Dumont, who was a friend of Louis Cartier in Paris. Santos-Dumont started with airships. Before airplanes, he had dirigibles, and operating one required both hands. So when he asked Cartier to create a watch for him, it was a watch that did not require reaching into a pocket with a spare hand that the airship pilot did not have. So able to keep his hand on the tillers and the wheels of his cantankerous machine, Santos-Dumont would have looked at his wrist for the time, making this both the first Cartier wristwatch and also the first pilot's watch of any kind, unless someone has some sort of novel scholarship to present. 1904, and this watch was probably the first pilot's watch by a margin. Also one of the first wristwatches of all kind. Later on, Cartier commercialized the style when it was found to be highly marketable. We have a combination of satin finish here and beveling, and you can see how the bevel runs all the way down the case, down the flank of the lug, and then all the way around the back of the case. So the design is really well realized, thoughtful in many ways. We have the bezel that is held in place using rose gold hardware. It's polished, contrast with the satin of the lug hoods and the case top. We have the beaded crown with the green Jade insert cabochon. And then we've got the dial with a rosette at center, a sort of off-white aesthetic featuring a chemin de fer or a railroad track outboard for the minutes. And then we'll try to get as close as we can. You can see those lovely applied three-dimensional marbled jade stone Roman numerals, including a watchmaker's for a really cool watch with a ton of charisma. And for all the rise of independence and the sudden run-up in Rolex prices, F.P. Journe going crazy, Patek Philippe seemingly breaking into the stratosphere, those were all rising from a very high place of esteem. I feel like over the last 10 years, no brand, bar none, has gained more credibility among traditional watch collectors than Cartier has, and watches like this are emblematic of why that has occurred. So reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.